I'm Julie Fei-Fan Balzer, and I'm here in the Brother Scan and Cut booth at CHA, and I'm super excited to show you all about the RGB color scanning. Now, I'm showing you this little journaling card, and I bet you're wondering why. And the answer is because the improved color scanning in the Scan and Cut 2 is going to make your life awesome. So let me show you how it works. So I'm going to go ahead onto my sticky mat, and I'm just going to place my journaling card down. It's not straight, it's not whatever, it doesn't matter, because the built-in scanner in the machine is going to be able to see exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to choose Scan. I'm going to choose Direct Cut, and what you'll see is I have the option of color or grayscale. So let's look at it in grayscale first, which is the way that the Scan and Cut 1 worked, so that you'll be able to see the difference in terms of what happens now that we can scan in color. So just a quick primer on color, just so you know. Grayscale can only tell the difference between tone. So if you have a red and a blue, and they're the same tone, it's not going to be able to tell the difference. However, when you scan in color, it can tell that one is red and one is blue. Okay, so back to the screen, we're going to take a peek, and what you can see right here is there's my image. If I hit OK, what you can see is, first of all, it's getting the outline. Now, if I pull in to this image right here and I want to get that all out, if you look, and I'll zoom in so that you can really see it. In fact, let's zoom in 400%. Can you see that I am not actually getting all of those letters? And that's because the yellow and the pink are really close and the machine's having trouble with it. Well, no longer, because in Scan and Cut 2, and now when we go to Scan and Direct Cut, we can choose the color scanning right there. And what you'll see when we do this is every single one of those little letters is absolutely gonna come out, because the color scanning is gonna allow you to see the difference. Now, I use the color scanning for all kinds of things. If I want to stamp a stamp onto, let's say, a colored piece of paper as opposed to a white piece of paper, the color scanning can tell the difference. If I have a really delicate design that needs a little zhuzhing, that's also when I use the color scanning. So back at the screen, we can see the image. And once again, we're going to go ahead and frame the image the same way that we did before right here. You can see it pretty easy, pretty quick. We're going to say OK, and the machine is going to take a moment now in color. Now, the color scanning, you can see, if I zoom in again, because it's a little bit hard to see otherwise, you just go in and you can see, boom, every single one of those letters is now coming out because of the color scanning. So it's one thing for me to say it, but oh baby, let's go ahead and cut it. Now, if I want, I can add a border, which I think is kind of fun. And you can add a border of any size, and you can see these little black lines are getting larger and larger. So I'm gonna add maybe, oh, let's add a tiny border, or should we cut on the line? I'm so indecisive. Let's cut on the line. Let's cut on the line. So I'm going to say okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and say cut. I'm going to make sure that my blade is set, and I can see it right here really easily. I'm just going to press start, and now this is going to fussy cut that out. So now you can imagine that all kinds of fabric, all kinds of patterned paper, all kinds of anything you have, any printed material, printables that you get off the internet, all sorts of journaling cards that maybe you have for various things, stamped images, dies, whatever it is, you can see it so much better, and that built-in scanner makes it so easy so that I don't ever have to drag out my scissors again. I can just go ahead and have the machine cut absolutely everything for me. You know, and this is one of the features that people really ask for in the Scan and Cut 2. You can see, of course, the Scan and Cut 2 has the bigger screen, which, you know, we all like a bigger screen, baby. And of course, it has more than 600 built-in designs. Who doesn't like that? And now, when I pop this out, well, the T got stuck in here, but otherwise, there you go. You've got every single one of those little pieces. And I mean, people always say, like, what's the level of detail that this can cut? Well, let's take a, if I have my fingers are big enough, or they're like, I feel like Shrek or something here with giant fingers. But there you go. You can see, that was a pretty small cut, I'd say, that the machine managed to handle, which is pretty cool, right? And then, of course, here's a little tip from me. So now you have this great thing. You know what this is called? A stencil. So you can easily use this over and over again along with the pieces that you cut out. Cool, cool, cool. But wait, there's more. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other things you can do. Now, we all know this, the Scan and Cut scans and it cuts. I mean, how boring. But let's talk about some of the things that you can actually cut out. So here's a drawing that I did, pretty basic, pretty fun, just a doodle, and I was able to cut it out of silicone stamp material. That's right, a custom silicone stamp. And again, you'll notice this is a different size and even shape. We made the heart wider than it is here. But okay, we were also able to draw it and then cut it out. And that is drawn with a gold, like a metallic kind of jelly roll pen, if you can see it glinting at all in the light there. Because again, now with the universal pen holder, what we can do is we can use any of our favorite pens from our craft room as long as they fit right inside that hole there. But wait, there's still more. How about a stencil? Now, one of the things I like is when you cut out of this stencil material, it's adhesive back, so you get a really, really crisp stencil when you go ahead and do that. Now, people always ask me about how detailed of a stamp can you cut. I don't know. I think that's pretty detailed to me. You know what I mean? Pretty cool. Okay. So why don't we go ahead and really quickly, let's cut a stencil, because you know, I like me some stencils. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slap this down on my mat. Now, the one thing I want to note to you is that, do you see this? This is a clear adhesive, like vinyl almost, and that's the side that's facing up. Okay. So let me just go ahead and pull these little pieces off my mat. I suppose I should be a good demonstrator and not just kind of abuse my mat and leave stuff all over it. I'm just gonna yank those off. If I were home, I'd be careful and actually take them off to use, but I'm just being a crazy lady today. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw my mat in, and notice you can put it in either way. There is no correct direction. There are arrows on both sides. So I'm gonna go ahead and go home. I'm going to grab a pattern. Let's see what is saved into the machine right now, if there's something fun. Oh, good. Let's cut the word hello. Right there. There she is, okay? Now, one of the things I want to show you is, do you see that red square or whatever you call it here? I think it's called a rectangle, if I could get it together, okay? That means that this is made up of many different little cut files, which I can unify. But did you know, and if I go back home, I'm gonna be able to show you this, that you can also save, okay, into the machine files that are already unified. So example, I believe that is the same exact file, except that, oh, I'm a liar, except it's not unified. Okay, so I'll show you that, which is I'm simply going to select all those boxes. I'm going to unify them. So now it's one box, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it into the machine, and I can either overwrite that file or create a new file. So we're going to overwrite it. And now forever and ever and ever, I never have to do that again. Here it is, and it's saved. So let's go ahead and scan in our stencil material so I can perfectly place that mask of a hello right where I want it to be. And while I'm doing that, let's just talk. What's the difference between a stencil and a mask? Because I said we were going to cut a stencil, and then I just used the word mask. So this is not specifically scan and cut related, but you know, our terminology is fun. So the difference is that a stencil is something you can like see through, poke through, the paint's going through the holes, and a mask is something that's blocking out a specific area. It'll make a little more sense once you see it cut. But I will just say that this is a mask, right? Because we're masking the area behind. If it were a big open heart and the rest of this were covered, then it would be a stencil. It doesn't really matter. It's just fun to know what people are talking about. I always think so. Okay, so here it is on the screen. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag this over so it can fit. And again, one of the things that I love about the zoom feature on the Scan and Cut 2 is that you can really, really see exactly where you're putting it so that there's no wasted material. I mean, I can nestle this super close so that I'm absolutely getting every inch of it that I want. Now, here's something that I always tell people to do, and I think that they don't always, which is to add a test cut. And the reason that I'm adding a test cut is because I want to make sure I'm only cutting through that stencil material and not all the way through everything. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my blade and I'm going to set it to where I think it's supposed to go. And generally I found that the stencil material is cutting at a 3, but this blade's been used for several days at a trade show and I'm not 100% sure. Now the machine is automatically going to stop as soon as it cuts that one little test cut. So that is really what I'm waiting for. Boom, it stops right there. Now without removing it, the first thing I test is I just try to pull off and see, did it cut out that little square? And it did. But the bigger question is, did it also cut through the back? And it didn't, which means I'm good to go. And instead of hitting quick cutting, if it had gone all the way through and I needed to adjust something, I'm simply gonna press the start button and that's gonna get going. And in no time at all, I'm gonna be able to cut out my own handwriting, a mask of the word hello, which I think is really cool. And of course I could have resized it or changed it. I could have added some other parts. I could have welded something to it because again, this is a possibilities machine. You can really do absolutely anything that you want. Now the way that I'm going to show you stenciling is something that you're probably not used to. Normally when I stencil with paint because I guess I like just to have dirty fingers or something like that. But what we're actually going to be using here, so we can say a little neater, is we're going to be using ink pads. And I have some ink pads somewhere in here. There we go. okay? And you want to use a really juicy ink pad when you're stenciling with ink pads, because something that's dry, as you can imagine, is just, well, it's not going to work. Okay, so I'm going to pull this off, and what you'll see is that the entire thing comes off. There's nothing left, because again, we only cut through that first top layer. So now, if I go ahead and I pull this off, you can see what's clinging to my fingers. I do need to, these little inside bits are clingy. Who likes clinging? Other than monkeys, I suppose. There you go. So we're gonna go ahead and just pull those little bits out. Now I'm going to take a piece of pattern paper, which I have right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and slap it down. Now you could of course use any paper you want. I just think it's really cool when you use pattern paper because it makes the print more intense. Now I am going to use a whole bunch of colors, because when it comes to color, well, oh baby, more is more. And I just like using everything at my disposal. So I'm literally just going down this ink pad stack, I guess that's what you'd call it, adding every single color that I come across, because that's fun for me. And I think again, it looks super cool to do that. So we're just gonna keep adding color, 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 color. And again, remember, you can always go back over something because you want that really juicy print when you're stenciling. I want that red. There you go. I guess it's kind of maroony. And I'm gonna go ahead and just do that. Okay, so now comes one of my more favorite exciting moments, which is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to pull it off. My fingers are huge, but boom. It's such a clean, crisp print, because again, the adhesive backing on here keeps it nice and crisp. But wait, there's more, which is I'm gonna go ahead now and I'm gonna take a baby wipe. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to just gently, now this is a little too wet. I wish it were a little drier. I'm gonna rub it all over my hand. You really want a used baby wipe of some kind. And I'm simply gonna wipe off the excess ink from here to get an additional soft print. Now the reason that I wish this were drier is because this is so wet, it's going to create a little bit of bleeding, so the print won't be that crisp. But if it were dry, it wouldn't do that. So that's a good little hint for you. But again, you can see there's my secondary hello, and I have a nice clean mask which I can place right back onto the stencil sheet to save it for later. But I mean, come on, that's pretty darn cool. So we can also cut a stamp, same file, which I think is really neat. Now we're gonna have to make it a lot smaller because this is the piece of stamp material I'm using. Now when you buy the stamp starter kit, the silicone comes this big. So we really could cut something this big, but I mean, who has a block this size? Nobody, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use this to cut it. Now, this comes covered so that it has two pieces of plastic. As you can imagine, silicone stretches. So what we wanna do is we wanna remove one piece of it, and then the second piece is gonna keep this from stretching too much. So then I can place this onto my regular mat, just like this, okay? I can go ahead, I can open the dust cover, and I can place this in. Now, I know what you're thinking, which is you're thinking, hey, Julie, this is like a clear piece of plastic on a white mat. How on earth are you gonna cut through that? And I'm gonna be like, you guys, don't judge me. I swear to you, I can do it. So I'm gonna go here and let me just delete out that little test cut. We don't need it right now. And let me go ahead and scan this in. And the thing you'll be amazed at is the scanner can actually see that clear stamp material on that white mat. Now the one thing about the stamps is you do need to use the deep cut blade, which is this purple blade. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take out my standard blade right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put in my deep cut blade, just like this. And the deep cut blade is what you use when you're cutting something a little bit hardier, like a stamp, okay? The other thing that you wanna make sure of when you're cutting a stamp is in the settings, you wanna have it the speed at a 1 so it goes nice and slow and you don't need any cut pressure at all. So we're gonna say, okay. Now here it is. Oops, it's way too big. So let's go ahead and resize it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and bring it down. You can see it's decreasing. And then of course I can zoom in and I can make sure that I'm placing it. It looks like it's still a little too big. So we're gonna bring it down even more. And I'm gonna zoom in. I'm gonna zoom in a lot. And I'm gonna go ahead, go on over, and pull it in right here. And again, I don't want to waste any of my material, so I'm pulling it in. I'm going to say, okay, now if I want, again, I can add a test cut to make sure that it's going to work. And I always tell people, don't ever, think that you absolutely know what something's supposed to be. What's the harm in testing a very small piece of material to make sure that overall you don't end up wasting your material? I think, it's kind of like a better safe than sorry thing. And boom, it came right out nice and crisp. So we're ready to just press start and go ahead and cut out our hello stamp. Now, here's one thing which you might be thinking, which I've thought in my brain before, which is usually stamps are backwards, but our file isn't backwards. So how is it going to print? Silicone's double-sided, so it doesn't matter. And isn't that awesome? Because I've made that mistake a million times with other things, like when I'm carving stamps and stuff like that, where I don't do it backwards. Luckily, it's double-sided, so we don't have to worry about it. So as soon as it comes out, it means that I can just put it on my block either way. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this out, and I'm gonna pull this off, and I can save the rest of that stamp material for later. And then I'm just gonna pull this out. It likes to cling. Man, we've been talking about a lot of clingy things today. And then you can see like these little inside bits, again, they're cut out. It's just a matter of I gotta actually physically pop them out one by one. So much fun. This is one of those things like doodling or whatever. It's like a therapeutic use of your time. And then of course you find all these little silicone goobers all over your floor. Don't do this over your cereal bowl or something. It's probably not good for it. But I'm just gonna go ahead and pop. I'm sorry, Mark, I think I just literally threw some goobers at you. Okay. Oh, I'm in a rush and I just ripped this. I'm such a bad demoer. Okay, so all I'm gonna do now is I'm going to take my block, and here's a little hint, which is put the stamp down onto the surface and then take your block, okay, and put your block on top of it to grab it, okay? Just like that. Of course, I put this on the wrong way. Now it's saying hello the wrong way. Okay, let's try that demo again, because I can take my own advice at some point. So put it down so that it's facing you the correct way, then put your block down. Then there it is. Now let's go ahead and stamp. So I'm gonna grab these same ink pads, and I'm just gonna go ahead and dab up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And again, if one color is good, 2 colors are better. And if 2 colors are good, I'm guessing 8 colors are better. But we're just gonna keep adding some ink on there. I think it always just looks really cool the more that you can add your own custom colors, because even though I'm using these ink pads, I'm able to sort of layer the color to create exactly what I want, and I think that's neat. So don't be afraid of mixing your colors all together. So now I'm going to take this, and I'm going to go ahead. I suppose I could do it facing you if I were being smart, and I'm going to go ahead, push down the same way you would with any silicone stamp, and here we go, custom hello, how you doing? So there you go. So cut file, stamps, stencils, drawing, so many amazing things. The Scan and Cut 2 has everything that customers ask for from the Scan and Cut 1, and it's even cheaper. Kind of amazing. So thanks so much, and be sure to check us out at scandandcut.com or on my blog at balzerdesigns.typepad.com.
Be sure to like our video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Scrap Time Videos, to be the first to see the latest videos from CHA 2016.